Welcome to the Totally Honest Cooking Show. I'm Mark. Today we are doing vermicelli, rice vermicelli. I've been addicted to the Mei Fun at one of my local delivery places, and so we're going to try to make it. I've looked at 3 or 4 recipes and I think I've got it down. We're going to start with 2 biggish chicken thighs that we're going to cut into strips, and then we are going to wash it, and I'll explain why in a minute. But we're gonna see if we can trim off a little bit of this fat and connective tissue first, just because we don't need all this crap. With that done, we're gonna cut this into strips. While we're doing that, I'm gonna talk about washing meat. Meat washing isn't something that we do a lot in the United States. J. Kenji Lopez Alt, who has a lovely book out called The Wok, says that washing the meat makes it subtly more tender, and it makes any marinade that you happen to be making do way better. We're just going to go ahead and rinse this and then squeeze it out once we have sliced it up. Most of the recipes that I looked for called for between 7 and 8 ounces of meat. Some of them were called for 8 ounces of like 3 kinds of meats. I just got out 2 boneless, skinless thighs. I try not to use weights on this show because it's supposed to be kind of a we don't really know what we're doing that much show. And I assume that many of the kind of people that would want to watch this show don't measure by weight. If you are into cooking and trying to get into cooking, I would suggest buying a kitchen scale. They're not expensive and they are very useful. Many chefs only give their units by weight because it's much more accurate. But for stuff like this, I'm probably just going to give you approximations. And if I had to guess, this is like, I don't know, this is probably close to 8 ounces. The package of 4 was like 1.8 pounds. And I picked the bigger ones. So this might be a pound of chicken, I don't know. But anyway, I'm going to finish cutting this up and then we're going to wash it. And then we're going to marinate it. I've never done this before, but we're going to go ahead and give it a go. I've definitely seen this where Kenji just kind of gives it a squeeze. Okay, I've squeezed out the chicken. It didn't seem to do that much to dry it, but the color I think has changed a little bit, unless I'm wrong, and my editor can tell me whether I'm wrong. I'm not skeptical though, because Kenji definitely knows what he's talking about. I am going to pat it dry a little bit with this one little tiny sad paper towel. So we're going to go ahead and get into making a marinade. For this portion of the recipe, the marinade comes from a site called walksoflife.com or thewalksoflife.com. For the rest of it, I kind of looked at 3 or 4 recipes and approximated them together, if that makes sense. That's what I do when I don't know what I'm doing. So we're going to start with oyster sauce. This calls for 1.5 teaspoons of oyster sauce. Oyster sauce is one of many, many kinds of sauces you can get at your Asian market or your ethnic food aisle at the grocery store. Don't substitute this with fish sauce. You will be sad. Fish sauce has more salt and is less sweet. So that's the difference. Next, I added 2 teaspoons of Shaoxing cooking wine. Next, the recipe calls for an optional pinch of 5-spice powder. So I'm going to use a heaping 1/8 teaspoon for that. A teaspoon of cornstarch. A teaspoon of vegetable oil. It called for 1/4 tablespoon of white pepper. I'm just going to do 2 twists of black pepper. And and like little twists. And 1 tablespoon of water. Now we're going to go ahead and throw everybody in the tub. Slosh them around. Try to move them a little bit so that they all get incorporated. I'm not sure what the cornstarch is for. I think it might be to help the sauce adhere. That makes sense to me. Okay. Now, once everything looks covered, we're going to cover that with plastic wrap and stick it in the fridge for about an hour. I'm not going to stop cooking though. I'm going to use this time to cut up vegetables, and then we'll get started on soaking our noodles. While that's marinating away, I'm going to go ahead and get the veg ready. We're going to start with some carrot, which we're going to peel. I'm going to start by cutting them down a little bit. Then we're going to cut them flat. This just makes them easier to cut. Once we've done that, we can start julienning. We're just gonna make little... We're making little sticks by running our knife just like that. And once we have a little pile, you're just gonna neaten it up, and then you're gonna now we're going to go ahead and slice them in half. There we go. We have more or less julienne or carrots. If you missed anybody, you can go back and just pop them in half. Now the trick here seems to be to get them thin. Making them too fat is a problem. Also, I don't think we're going to need that other carrot at all, given that I kind of used this fat one. Once you get a rhythm for it, it's really easy to go super thin. We'll see how this actually is, but look at that. Next up, we're going to do some green onions, aka scallions. Honestly, I could eat like a million of these in anything, but whatever. Sometimes when you get them, they are long pieces that are crushed. Sometimes they're just chopped up. I'm just going to chop them up. And you can use the white part, you can use the green part, you can use any part. Sometimes I just use the tops, sometimes I just use the bottoms, depends on what I'm in the mood for. Usually I save whatever I don't use because I paid for it. Next, I'm going to do half a red onion. One recipe I read called for a teaspoon of ginger, kind of sliced or minced. So I got my ginger, I got my spoon. Here's how you peel ginger with a spoon. I'm not going to peel the whole thing of ginger because I don't need more than this. I don't even need the amount that I'm peeling. I did consider taking this as an opportunity to make my own pickled ginger. We'll see. That might be a video in the future because I've wanted to do it for a while, and it's supposed to be pretty easy. So we're just gonna cut off a hunk, and I'm also gonna prep 3 cloves of garlic. And last but not least, we're going to shred some cabbage. We almost certainly will not need all of this. So I'm thinking maybe half of this. So like a fourth a head of cabbage. But I am just going to shred my cabbage. Now, the reason I'm keeping this separate and not throwing it in the bowl with everything else is because I feel like all that stuff will cook faster than cabbage. But it'll all cook pretty quick once you get started. That's why we're doing it all ahead of time. The next and almost last step before we get cooking is to soak our noodles. Okay, so if you're making rice noodles like this, you're going to soak them ahead of time. Most of the recipes I read called for 7 or 8 ounces of noodles. That's a 12-ounce bag. So I will use slightly more than half. You can either boil these for about 1 minute, or you can soak them in water for 15 to 30 minutes. And then you would stir fry them. So that's what we're going to do. So we're going to cover these in cold water. Then I'm going to let them sit for like 20 minutes, pour them through a colander, and then we'll start cooking. I'll have everything else ready by the time we start cooking. Okay, we're ready to cook. I'm going to preheat my wok to medium. Yeah, looks good. I'm going to pour the water out of my rice noodles. Shake them dry. Notice your wok starts to smoke pretty fast. We're going to put 3 tablespoons of vegetable oil down. We're going to swirl the coat. Then I'm going to pour in 2 eggs. You'll notice that this all cooks very quickly. You can toss it, you can do whatever. But it's going to cook fast regardless of what you do. We might need more vegetable oil because of the egg. Eggs do tend to sop up whatever. Then we're going to realize we left the chicken in the fridge. Remember, always, always, always have everything ready when you start stir frying. Because, like I said, it's going to go super fast. Like unbelievably fast. Once our egg looks done, I'm just going to toss it into my awaiting receptacle. If you want to avoid that mess that I just had, you can just heat the egg until it gets crispy. I let the fear get to me. I am going to need more oil after that. Go light on the oil before you put the egg in, maybe a tablespoon, so that the egg doesn't eat all your oil. Usually when you start wok cooking, like I said, it will smoke. Don't let it make you nervous. It's fine. That's what it's supposed to do. Wok cooking is high heat, which is why it's so fast. Now, in Kenji's book, he talks about how part of the process is the tossing. Oh, I'm not that good at it yet, but the idea is that the cooking creates steam, and you toss the food through the steam, and it cooks faster that way. So you want to keep it moving. Ideally, let it heat up a lot. Medium, medium high. And then toss it. This is good. This is a good time to practice your cooking show host stuff. And we're looking to just get the pink off of it. Of the things that we're cooking, this will take the longest. Once we've got the color off of the chicken, make a little well. Add in our cabbage, stir it. Anything that looks too big, get it with your wok spatula, you'll be fine. See, I was right. I should have cut that chicken down way more. But that's how we learn as we go, right? Totally honest cooking show. We make mistakes, but we're trying new things, and that's important, right? Don't be afraid. We may have used too much cabbage. We'll see in a minute. Or Jerkins will let us know in the overlay now. Okay. Now we're going to go ahead and add in the rest of the vegetables. And while that's cooking, I'm going to go ahead and put the soy sauce around the edge. Give it a toss. That was 1 to 2 tablespoons. I think I used about 1.5 tablespoons in that little ramekin. Now I'm going to go ahead and throw in a little sesame oil. That's 1.5 teaspoons. All the recipes agreed on that. And a tablespoon of Shaoxing Wine. I'm just going to cook all this stuff up. Yeah, I think I probably made enough enough accoutrement for probably twice the amount of noodles that I made, but we will see. You know, sometimes I'm surprised on this show. I bet it's gonna be amazing. Oh my god. Go ahead and add the ginger and the garlic in the little well in the middle. We'll let it cook a little bit in the little well. Sometimes these recipes call to add the stuff like that at the beginning. The problem with that is that if the meat takes too long, you're going to wind up with burnt garlic and burnt ginger, which are not nearly as delicious. So we're adding it close to the end for that reason. I'm going to go ahead and put in 1 tablespoon of curry powder. This is optional. I've never done this. Again, I don't necessarily know what I'm doing. And that's okay. Remember, anyone can cook, especially you, and that's the whole point of this show. Always. That cabbage might have needed to go in before the chicken. To be honest with you, the cabbage is what's taking the longest. Make sure you shred it real fine, because I'm not sure some of these pieces got shredded enough. Okay, I'm going to put the noodles in. And everybody's going to get to know each other. Right, just gonna. So, if you're doing this yourself, what I've learned so far, make sure that you cut the cabbage small. Make sure that you cut the chicken smaller than I did. If you can, get the longer rice noodles, because that'll make them less likely to clump up like these. Okay. We're more or less done here. I'm just mixing her around. Actually, oh, forgot to add the egg back in. Don't be like me. This is kind of a kitchen sink version of this at this point. I put so much stuff in here, but I think it's going to be amazing. I am very happy with how this is looking. Okay, I'm going to kill the heat now because stuff is starting to cake and burn. One good thing about these carbon steel woks is that it's very difficult to actually destroy anything. Even if you wind up with some caking. Even if you have to scrub it down and re-season it. And it looks like we're ready to serve. Clearly, I brutalized these noodles. They're not all together. So ideally, you want to use longer noodles and you want to toss rather than break up with the spatula. But it's still going to be delicious. Let's give it a taste and see how we did. Pretty good. Not as good as the restaurant that delivers here, but not bad. Cabbage could have gone for a little bit more time on the cook. So yeah, maybe start that before the chicken. I don't know. I will definitely be trying to make this again. For right now, I'm going to say I stand by this recipe. It's good. I'll include the recipe in the description along with the links to all the places I went to do research. For now, that's all from me. Like, subscribe, click the little bell, and I'll see you next Wednesday. Bye.